the prayer. Tenpa chonden de tijin jeba da chomba yangda ba zube sanje riba tansha su tenpa dewara shepa. Jiden tenpa jibu debe kalo jowa lana meba pata minam je tenpa sanje chomden de. Peja wa jaja topa la jatse lo chodo jatsu jo tenpa chomden de. Dijin jeba da chomba yangda ba zube sanje riba tansha su tenpa dewara shepa. Jiden jemba jibu dewe kalo jowa lana mepa lata minam je tenpa sanje chumdende. Peja wa shaja toba la jatse lo jodo japso chewo tenpa chumdende. Dijin jeba da chumba yanda ba zobe sanje riba tansha su tenpa dewara sheba. Jiden jemba jibu dewe kalo jowa lana mepa lata minam je tenpa Sanje chumden de peja wa shaja toba la cha tselo. Chodo jia zu chi wo zeka nye zo jie tang zi sa jen de la gongpa dunpo ne nga nye jik ten de na cho che su. De zi jie ba jie la cha zelo namda gong a chodo su sang wa yi shi jia zu se jie longpo da. Da ba jie de sum to la nye wa gongpo cho nye jie la cha zelo. Sen jo de ba ti me da we she se to cha wa jie la cha zelo. De ju da se ba su ma jie nya me chi jin jie la cha zelo gongpo tu jie chen ten ba. Tan jie jien be ten ba bu se na yun de jia zui xin di xin she la cha zelo da pe de cha jie wa ju. Yewe nye song le tu chen chik tu ten dam chu ju ba shi ju chi la cha zelo. Gena tu we lam yang tu la pa ta la ra tu ne xin jie tang ba yun den de. Yin de la yang cha zelo di ba chi yang mi cha xin jie wo tu sum su ba ji. Rang jie sem ne yong su tu de ne san jie ten ba ye ka ma ra bi ma me da. Yo ma se ba chu ta me na lo ta chen da bu tu jie chen nam te tra ta. Se na di ye tang jie se ba ye gong ba tum ni jun jie ta tu de. Ga da na ta chi we lap tu bi si be zu le zhuo wa zhe wa shuo ma san jie me che ra pa rue jie ma jie ming ga na jie mo wo ni su su ran le yi chi chi tu sum jie we yum la cha zi lo te ya ta ga de para ga de pu te ye so te ya ta ga de para ga de pu te ye so te ya ta ga de para sam ga de pu te ye so Gere tongda ge ju shi wa tang mi tu ne bi jian dang zhe wa tang ten pa zhu ji pi song zi jun. Da shi de jiang ding de de le shuo ni tu shi wa zu na gun shi ni ji ni shi ting zhe kan yi tang zhuo la pen pa chen na. Lam shi ni ji ji den dun zhu zhe pa kang da yan da den bi tu na nam pa gun de. Na zuo di song pa nian de chen ju sin bi zuo ji san ji ji ni. Yung de la cha tse lo kan je ting jing te ba chung ka ba me ba je me ba che ba me ba ta me ba wong a me ba zhu me ba ta de tu me tun che me zhe ba ni xi xin de ba zhou bei san je ma nang de dan ba de la cha tse lo sa ji bei je chung che me to chang a zhe ra lin xi ni de jian ba de san je xing du mi de bi wa ye zhou ken nam da xing du che ba shuo ye da ma gu ru rat na men da la kam ni ya ta ya me san je che da zu ji chu na la chen ju pa to ta ni che su che da ji chi shi je be zu nam je zhe la pian je san je zhu pa shuo san je che da zu ji chu na la chen ju pa to ta ni che su che da ji chi shi je be zu nam je zhe la pian je san je zhu pa shuo san je che da zu ji chu na la chanqiu pa to da ni jie su qi da ji qu xie ji bei cuo nam ji zhe la pian jie san jie zhu pa shuo gan jie tu zhe ni su ne da wa dam jie pan bei jie tan bei qu ne dun zhen bei guo dam de la cha zhe lo Namo la ye ke da lu da nyu jin ke ye tu bum ta da mi ke nam da ro a kun je ta nam chi zam am je ke to da ji chu de to ran ja son ra kun la ta we mi ke san ta ba tu be chung cho tse be chung ha ke tse ba se je shi ni nam la ku be tu Okay, so we are in stanza 16, right? Stanza 16. Rangshin toba maybe chinam rangshin kayuna. Nyanye deba mirungshin chukin toba meba sungs. Because intrinsic nature cannot be negated. If phenomena possess some intrinsic nature, nirvana would become impossible. And elaborations could not be seized, you taught. So because which is, the previous stanza, the stanza 15, it's showing the stanza 15 established as dependent origination, it is sure to be empty of inherent existence, right? So things empty of inherent existence because they are dependent originations. That's the stanza 15's main point. So here, because intrinsic nature cannot be negated. So if the things exist intrinsically, right? That's called the intrinsic nature. If things exist intrinsically, then cannot be negated. Then you cannot negate. You cannot negate the mind of ego grasping, mind of self grasping, because intrinsic nature, things exist independently, inherently, right? So if things exist inherently, independently, then mind of self-grasping should be valid cognition, not the wrong consciousness. If these are valid, then you cannot negate it, right? You cannot negate it. Also, if things exist independently, inherently, intrinsically, then you cannot change them because they exist by its own. They exist independently, inherently. They are not dependent on cause condition. They are not dependent on anything else. They exist themselves. How can you change them? So how can you stop them? You cannot do anything because they exist by themselves. They are not dependent on anything else. So things not depending on anything else, you cannot change. And a change is changeable because the things are dependent on causal condition. Things are dependent on something else. That's why you change. But things are exist inherently, right, independently, then you cannot change. That also means because intrinsic nature cannot be negated, right? Cannot change, cannot stop them, cannot negate it. If phenomena possess some intrinsic nature, nirvana would become impossible, right? If any phenomena exists inherently, intrinsically, all of these are same meaning, intrinsically or inherently or independently, right? Exists by its own. So these are synonymous, the same meaning. So that always you need to be remember, sometimes different words, when they use it, it's make us confused, right? One point they say intrinsically, some of the text they say inherently, some of the text they say independently, right? So all of these are same meaning. So that's why if phenomena possess some intrinsic nature, if they are possessed with independent nature, inherently, intrinsically exist, then nirvana would become impossible, right? Nirvana, which means cessation of mind of self-grasping, right? Mind of self-grasping, the cessation of mind of self-grasping, mind of ego-grasping is called nirvana, right? So if defilements, if the things that exist independently, then you cannot seize them. Mind of ego-grasping, you cannot seize. You cannot stop. Then how can exist nirvana? Nirvana is the freedom, cessation of those defilements, right? Mind of ego grasping. So that is why if phenomena possess, some intrinsic nature, if the phenomena exist independently, inherently, then nirvana will not be possible, right? It's called impossible. Nirvana will not exist. That means nirvana will become impossible. And elaborations could not be seized, you taught. So elaborations, which is amount of self-grasping, it's called a conceptual elaboration of clinging to extremes, right? The conceptual, elaboration, which is clinging to extremes in either absolutism, either nihilism, right? These are called what you call the uh, clinging to extreme, right? Either absolutism, which means the mind of self-grasping is the clinging, grasping absolutism, right? Fall into the absolutism. The mind who believe nihilism, nothing exists, anything. So nihilism is also clinging to the extreme called the nihilism, right? So therefore, elaborations, which means the mind, right, who clinging to extremes, who grasping to extremes, or mind who fall into the one of the extreme is the absolutism, either nihilism, right? So the absolutism is the mind of self-grasping. Mind of ego-grasping is the falling into absolutism at extreme. Or the mind who grasp things non-exist at all, right? So non-existence, who cling, who grasping the things not exist, nihilism. So those mind is also the mind who clinging to extreme, which is called nihilism. So all of those mind is called the elaboration, right? So and elaborations. So elaborations has two, either mind who fall into absolutism, either mind who fall into the nihilism, right? So it's called the mind of clinging to extremes. So the mind of clinging to extremes is called elaborations. So that's why it's called, and elaborations could not be seized, cannot seize that because things exist independently, inherently, right? So if things exist independently, inherently, then mind of self-grasping, you cannot seize that, cannot, you know, negate it because it is valid cognition. What they clinking, it exists that way. So that is why it's saying elaboration could not be seized, you taught. So anything, from the middle way consequences school's perspective, mind-only school, Vaipashaka, Sotantika philosophers, or what you call the uh, non-Buddhist philosophers. All of them fall into either absolutism, either nihilisms, right? So they are falling into extremes because they're all thinking, they're all believing, you know, what you call uh, things exist independently, inherently, right? So they grasp, they believe, they apprehending things exist independently. So if this is the case, then the middle way consequences schools perspective, then if the things exist independently, intrinsic nature, then phenomena, nirvana would become impossible. Then minds of the, clinging to extremes, these are also impossible to seize because everything exists by themselves. So things exist by themselves, you cannot seize them. You cannot stop them. You cannot do anything. They are not changeable. They exist by themselves. They exist objectively. They exist inherently. Where the things exist inherently, independently, you cannot change them. Change means something dependent. The things which are dependent on something else, that's why it becomes changeables. So therefore, all of these things will impossible, right? All the nirvanas are impossible. So this stanza is showing if things were established by inherently nature, then nirvana and so forth would be impossible, right? Called what they call untenable or something, untenable, right? Impossible. So this stanza is showing if things exist independently, or if things, were established by inherent nature, right? Independent or intrinsically nature, then nirvana or so forth will be impossible, right? It's called untenable. So now this stanza for you, if it really makes sense to you or not, that's the question. We debate to mind on this goal and all, that's not big deal. Negating them and stop them, that's their business. So now we use that for you, if they really make sense to you, believing things exist objectively, inherently, independently, that means nirvana, impossible. That means mind of self-grasping cannot be seized. So that really makes sense to you or not? That's the important part. So you need to understand that. So if that you really understand that, means then you may understanding the object of negation, mentioned last time, you may really understand what's mean by inherent nature, what's mean by independent existence. So if you're still not seeing contradict, one aspect, you still, believing things exist independently. One aspect, you still believing nirvana and all kinds of things. If for you it's not what you call feel or seeing the contradict, right? Conflict each other. That means you're still not understanding the object of negation, right? Which means inherent existence. So that's why this stanza is showing if things established inherently, right? If the things established inherently, that means nirvana and so forth, you know, um, would be impossible, right? Would be untenables, right? Untenables. So that's what you call only the people who know the object of negation, then that may helps you. But yes, if the things exist objectively, independently, inherently from their its own, then none of things will be, they are not dependent on anything else. So things not depend on anything else, they are independent themselves. So who can change that? Who can stop these things? Because these objects exist independently, inherently. So for instance, your mind of ego grasping exists independently, inherently. How can you cease? How can you stop? This mind is not dependent on anything else, right? So it's impossible to stop, seize that. If you cannot stop the mind of ego grasping, then nirvana is impossible, right? It's that's how you should think. Then the next stanza, teacher Rangshin Nam Del She, Singi Tai Yayanto, Kebe Tsosu Lexumba, Tila Suyu Kombarnis. Therefore, who could challenge you, you who proclaim with lines roar in the assembly of the learned ones repeatedly that everything is utterly free of intrinsic nature. So therefore, who will challenge you? Therefore, can debate with you? Who can challenge to you? To the Buddha is talking about the Buddha, right? So Buddha taught in the 16th stanza. Buddha taught intrinsic nature cannot be negated. If phenomena possess some intrinsic nature, nirvana would become impossible. Therefore, and elaboration, which is your mind of ego grasping, right? Power could not be seized. You taught, that's how Buddha taught, right? So because, therefore, challenge you, who can debate with you? Your teaching on dependent origination, your teaching on emptiness means dependent origination. That's the main. So who can challenge on this teaching, this philosophy of dependent origination? Therefore, who could challenge you? You who proclaim with lines roar in the assembly of learned ones repeatedly, which means lines roar, right? The line has power, confidence, right? He can, he's the king of the animals. So whatever animals around there, he can, use his sound quickly, without fear, without, concern, full of confidence. He can roar, right? He can use very loud, his voice with the confidence, not fear. Similarly, Buddha is teaching of dependent origination with confidence, with hesitate, with feel concern and fear. He can, loudly proclaim, front of the what you call intelligence. You see, in the assembly of learned ones, right? In the assembly of the intelligent scholars, you can teach your dependent origination philosophy without any concern and hesitation, with the confidence. And not one time. You can talk this dependent origination means emptiness repeatedly, again and again and again, to front of the scholar in this world, that everything is earthly free of intrinsic natures. So everything's earthly, means ultimately, right? Ultimately free of intrinsic natures, right? So that confidence Buddha has. So nobody can challenge to you. When the lion roar in front of the animals, none of animals can challenge to the lion. He's the king, right? Nobody can challenge, nobody can fight, nobody can argue to the lion. Had that confidence. Same Buddha who has that same confidence in front of the scholars, philosopher, all the different traditions of the scholar, he can say oftenly, repeatedly about dependent origination without any hesitation, without any fear and worry, with the full confidence. So none of other can accuse or challenge to you that confidence, right? Buddha has that. So usually when you look at in Tibetan tradition, when they make a throne, when they're teaching throne, most of those thrones, below the throne, they draw snow line, like the snow lines. That's the symbolism of snow line is like that. So the person who seated on this throne and teach the dharma, which has full confidence, means that person not hesitate, not feeling doubt. It's representing full of knowledge, who understanding what they teach the dharma has full of, you know, uh, confidence. That's the representing of the snow lines under the throne. They draw these throne snow lines. Is that so? Whoever sit on that throne is supposed to be have that same type of confidence, which means full of knowledge, really understanding. Not just doubt, not just assuming, nice, with solid reason, logic, fully experienced, fully cognizing, you know, full of evidence to prove whatever they say has something, behind there, full of the confidence, evidence, valid reasons. So that's why the snow lines represent when they draw under the throne. Throne sometimes 8 snow lines. They draw for each four direction, two snow lines, and they hold the lotus flower, and upon the lotus flower, then that's throne where they make it, and that's cushions. That's how the teacher seated on that throne. It's held by the snow lines. So it's that symbolism of the line. So here they say, you who proclaim with lines roar. So the lines, the roar, whatever it is, you have no hesitate. None of other animals can, fight back to the line, have that confidence. So similarly, that type of the confidence, which showing Buddha's teaching is everything he taught has full of evidence. He understand, recognize himself, then he teach these things. So therefore, nobody can challenge you. So this is praise to the Buddha, right? Praising to the Buddha, teaching on dependent origination means emptiness. So this specific stanza, is called demonstrating that no one can challenge the Buddha's teaching that emptiness is dependent origination. And our teaching on emptiness is a dependent origination. So nobody can challenge, that kind of confidence. So now for us, as a follower of the Buddha, right? For us now, we need to have that kind of confidence. That kind of confidence we need to have, emptiness means dependent origination. Dependent origination means emptiness. So that, what you call the knowledge, you have to build that confidence. Means you need to understand yourself. So Lama Tsongkhapa prays to the Buddha to have this, marvelous knowledge, very important philosophy. If this is struggle, if this is confused, if this knowledge you don't know, you will stuck into everything's struggle, everything's difficult to explain. We believe things out of our blind faith, most of the people. But it's good what you believe is the good. But blind faith, which means that belief is not coming through yourself to understand. You're believing that because of Buddha taught it, because of our teachers taught it. So that belief system is not what you call, it's good, but it's not enough. Realization to overcome your mind of ego grasping, your mind of self grasping, which is the fundamental causes of samsara, right? All the sufferings. So that is why first we listen this, we believe out of faith, then slowly ourselves listen these teachings again, many times. Each time when you're listening this teaching, you get little different kind of idea about this philosophy. It building slowly. Then after, you may have kind of the assumption, maybe this is something, maybe this way. Then when you get that kind of realization, then you're thinking yourself and you contemplating, analyze, research. So that research, analyzing is called contemplate meditation, analytical meditation. That helps to grow your realization more stronger, more deeper, right? Then finally, you experienced, right, through this contemplate, finally, you understanding dependent origination, believing is not just by belief or faith, also by understand yourself, cognizing yourself, right? So wisdom, you know, the wisdom of emptiness arising from thinking. First, wisdom of emptiness arising from hearing. Then slowly, slowly, you're thinking, you have a different experience. So that experience, the wisdom arising from thinking, right? That's more important. So when you got that wisdom, when you experience that emptiness, then the way is meditate. Means just experience that emptiness constantly, not just one time. When you got it, then you constantly just experience that, remain that. So when you live with the emptiness for longer, what is going to do is remain with longer. It's helping you cleaning the layers of the mind of self grasping, which we have. It's cleaning now. It's cleaning. It's like a detergent. Detergent is cleaning all the what you call the dirty on your clothes. So it's just put a detergent with the cloth doesn't mean it's gone. You put the detergent with the cloth and then shake it again, right? 15 minutes or half an hour, whatever in detergent they do, is shaking. That's called meditation. So you're doing this again. Each time you do it, the grosser level of defilements are getting weaker, cleaner. That's how go more subtle. So those defilements in our mind is very heavy, strong defilements covered our mind. It's not just one. It's very heavy to very light, light. Maybe you can say very subtle defilement from grosser level to very subtle level of defilements, which cover our mind streams. So when you got the detergent, that detergent, you put it into the cloth and you wash, right, constantly. So when you experience emptiness, just experience emptiness doesn't mean your mind of self-grasping is gone. It doesn't mean that, right? Just having detergent doesn't mean, oh, your cloth is now clean, right? You have to put it into the washing machine and then wash again and again, many times to clean completely. Exactly similar like that. That's called meditation. So right now, for ordinary like us, even we don't have detergent. We don't get it. So you don't have detergent. How can you wash your cloth, right? So without having detergent, just put cloth in the water, just go wash. Why you're not going to clean it? You need the detergent to clean. So exactly the same. Wisdom without wisdom of emptiness, whatever meditation we do, it just, of course, it's good. It's cleaning certain things. But the main defilements cannot washed without wisdom of emptiness, without detergent, right? You put the clothes in the washing machine, just only put the water, it can clean some type of the dust. But the real, you know, dirty, whatever dust, bad things there, will not go to clean without detergent. Same like that. So this wisdom of emptiness is like a detergent. Therefore, right now, we don't have that detergent. That's why we need to study, which means that we need to really understand what's mean by emptiness, dependent origination. Do you really understand it? Did you got it or not? If you don't got it, if you're not having, still not get it, that means you still don't have detergent. That means there's no way to wash your defilements, right? That's how we should understand. You know, there's one stanza. It's called the Sutra Samatha Bhadra. Sorry. Samadhi Raja Sutra. Yes. The Buddha says it's one of the sutra we call Tibetan called Doti Tingin Sijapo, means the sutra of king of concentration, you know. So Samadhi Raja, right? Sutra. Samadhi means concentration, Raja means king. So according to that sutra, Buddha says, if one individually realize the selflessness of phenomena and individually contemplates and meditates on that, that is the cause of obtaining the fruit of nirvana. Whatever other cause there is that will not bring peace, means nirvana, genuine peace. Right? What the Buddha said, this is Buddha, his own word, right? King of Samadhi, king of concentration, sutra, the name of the sutra. He's saying, if one individually realizes the selflessness of phenomena, which means if you recognize, right, or understand selflessness of phenomena, which means emptiness, right? Emptiness of phenomena, selflessness, emptiness of the phenomena. And individual contemplates and meditates on that. Then first yourself cognize the emptiness, understand the emptiness of the phenomena. Not just understanding is not enough. Contemplate again and again with meditation, right? Again and again. That's why he says individually contemplate and meditate on that. Then what he say, that is the causes of obtaining the fruit of nirvana. So that kind of things, right? Meditate on that emptiness is the cause of obtaining, right? Achieving the fruit of nirvana. Whatever other cause there is that will not bring genuine peace, right? Real peace. So that's all. Wisdom of emptiness is the one. First, you should understand the emptiness. Then what you understand individually, itself, yourself. Individual means yourself, not somebody. Yourself, contemplate, meditate again. And that will lead you, means helps you to achieve nirvana. Otherwise, another causes, whatever we do, will not bring peace, will not going to bring you that nirvana. Peace, which means the nirvana, right? not brings you. And that's Buddha, his own word. That's why we really need to understand that in our philosophy. So without understanding on this philosophy of dependent originations, which means emptiness, without understanding that, it's impossible to achieve liberation, right? Liberated, liberated, general liberation has three, right? Sarvakayana liberation, Patikayana Buddha liberation, Mahayana liberation. Three different types of the liberations. So Mahayana liberation is enlightenment, Buddhahood, right? So Sarvaka and Patika Buddha liberation is the just nirvana, right? We're liberated from samsara. So at least liberation means you're liberating. So we liberate from what? Liberate from samsara, right? So that, what is that samsara liberation? What that really means first, we need to understand the samsara, suffering of cycle existence, right? This suffering of cycle existence, that samsara, how we circle in samsara. So Buddha taught 12 link of interdependence, right? 12 link of interdependence that we talked about last time. So among these 12 link of interdependence, first link of interdependence is mind of self-grasping, which is called ignorance, right? What kind of ignorance? A mind of self-grasping. So this is the root causes. Buddha introduced that. So therefore, in order to liberate from samsara, the root causes of samsara is mind of self-grasping. We need to liberate from that. We need to cut that. So without cutting self-grasping, right, we cannot liberate from samsara, right? There's no any other choice. In order to cut the mind of self-grasping, the wisdom of emptiness is the only the one, right? Wisdom of emptiness is the only the one who can directly antidote to your mind of self-grasping, nothing else. That is why Buddha, this sutra, the king of concentration sutras, why Buddha saying that? In order to liberate samsara, you have to have wisdom of emptiness. Because of that reason. So therefore, it is very, very important, right, to have this, to understand. So here now this stanza, which right now we're talking about here, stanza 16, right? 17. This all talking dependent origination means emptiness. You praise to the Buddha about teaching on dependent origination. This stanza 17, and it shows, no one can, right? No one can challenge to the Buddha of teaching the emptiness is the meaning of dependent origination. So all of these, what that mainly showing means dependent origination is the very important knowledge which we need to discover. In this planet, this era, Buddha Shakyamuni, he's the one who discovered it, right? When he was young, he been received many teachings from non-Buddhist scholars, many different masters, but he's still not fully satisfied. There's something missing. There's something still clinking there. So finally, through his own, investigate, analyzing. So finally, when he discovered dependent origination, which means empty of inherent existence, when he discovered this knowledge and these wisdoms helps him to completely eliminate all his misperception, right? All his wrong consciousness, ignorance. So that's where he found it and he shared. But this knowledge is very, very difficult. It is not easy. So you guys, don't expect, oh, I just take this teaching, I will understand this dependent origination means emptiness. It's not. There's a one stanza Buddha taught when he achieved Buddhahood himself, right? When he achieved Buddhahood, age of 35, age of 29, he go to the retreat and discover the emptiness philosophy, put it into the meditation. So 6 years meditate. Finally, when he is, free from all this defilement, mind of self-grasping, even the imprints, that's called enlightenment. He achieved it. So purpose of achieving enlightenment Buddhahood is sake of others, no doubt, right? The Buddha's sacrifice is mainly for sake of others. So now, how can you benefit to others, right? How can you becoming Buddha for sake of us, right? For sake of entire beings. So now you already become a Buddha. So can you save us now, right? That's the question. So it is saying in the text, one of the best way to help to other being is teach the Dharma. It's called turning the wheel of Dharma. So age of 35, when he become a Buddha, till age, death, 81, right? Around how many? 45 years after he achieved Buddha. What he done? He travel and teach, right? He travel and teach. So there's hundreds and hundreds of volumes. How much he teach, how much he taught. Even translation into Tibetan. Only in Tibetan, we have 108 volumes, right? Which taught by Buddha. So when we say sutra, sutra means the teaching, the text, which taught by Buddha. And that's called the sutra. So 108 volume in Tibetan language. Imagine in Sanskrit and Pali, how many they may have. How many texts we may not able to translate into Tibetans, right? Many. So that's showing his life after he became a Buddha to tell death. He just travel and teach the Dharma. It's showing what that means one of the best way to save others, help to others. You can give food, you can give shelters, all kind of things. You can do it, right? But among all this generosity, all these, activities, virtuous activities, the best and the most important behavior is teaching the Dharma, will of Dharma. That's why he put all his effort. So how he saved us, how he saved us, which means he says, one of the stanza, his own word, Buddhas It is in Tibetan word, tumnam bigba chu mi tu xing, dwe dunge chage mi seyang, ni ki tokba shen la po mende, chini dembar tumbe drolwa yins, which means Buddhas do not wash away your negative karma with waters, right? That's the first line. They cannot wash negative karmas, right? Say sins, negative karmas. They do not clear away beings suffering with their hands. So they cannot clear away our suffering by their hands. So which means they cannot take it. They cannot take our suffering by their hands. They do not transfer their own knowledge to others. They do not transfer their realization to the other people, to us, right? Then the last line, they liberate by teaching the truth of reality. So only what they can do, they liberate other sentient beings, right? They liberate by teaching the dharma, which is called truth of reality, which is the dharma. So they liberate by teaching the dharma. So teaching the dharma is only the way others can help us, to liberate us. They cannot pull us. They cannot wash our negative karmas and our negative emotions, right? They cannot take by their hands. Only what they do, they teach the dharma, the truth of reality. Then we are the self, listen this teaching, right? That's why called Pe Sam Gomsum in Tibetan. Listening, analyzing, thinking, and meditation. Familiarize. So first listening. So this teaching, you need to listen again and again and again. Not just one times, right? Many times. You see Pranja Paramita Sutra, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, right? Among the hundreds of sutra, one of the best and the top wisdom is called sutra is called Pranja Paramita Sutra, Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. When you read the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in Tibetan language, there are maybe 23 or something volumes. Perfection of Wisdom Sutra has 23 or 24 volumes. So each volume has 400-500 pages, right? So when you look at, they're talking about 16 different types of the emptiness, 18 different parts of the emptiness. These emptiness, not one time, again, repeating this many times, maybe 100 times they may repeat it in those sutra. So means we need to listen this again and again and again first. After the listening many times, you feel something. You get certain type of the knowledge, wisdom, after listening many times. When you got that knowledge, then you have certain type of the quality, able to think now, able to investigate. So when you investigate, when you think, when you contemplate, you have to have certain knowledge. If you do not have any knowledge, how can you contemplate? It's impossible. Research. That's why after thinking, after listening, you get the wisdom of certain type of the knowledge, then you analyze, contemplate, think again and again and again, right? Research many times. Then finally, you may understand. what that means, emptiness, dependent origination, what that really means. That means now you experience the emptiness, right? Just experience emptiness doesn't mean your mind of equal grasping is now gone. That doesn't mean that, right? So that means, that's why I mentioned earlier, when you realize the emptiness, you got the detergent. Now you have detergent, right? Now that detergent, you have to put it into the washing machine with the cloths. Then you have to wash, right? Again, many minutes, 15, 20, 100, whatever minutes, is wash. So meditate. Okay, I can contemplate after. Meditate means after you experience, that meditation means be familiarized. That explanation, that experience, be again and again your experience, be familiarized again. So each time when you experience that emptiness, that realization is the one who cleaning the defilements. Mind of equal grasping and rest of all the destructive emotions, which are based on mind of equal grasping, right? It's all cleaning, all shaking now. That's how, we need to go. So I mentioned last time, when you achieve the I saw one of the commentary I never saw before that. First, Dalai Lama says, according to his commentary, when you talk about the accumulation part, preparation part, seeing part, meditation, normal learning part, right? There's 5 parts to achieve Buddhahood. So he distinguished each part through experience the emptiness. So he says, first, when you achieve the shamatha on emptiness, shamatha meditation on emptiness, when you achieve shamatha on emptiness, you achieve the accumulation path. Then you achieve the vipassana on emptiness, you achieved preparation path, right? Then finally, next, you experience emptiness directly, non-conceptually, nakedly. You achieve the seeing part, right? Then meditation part is you constantly, what you experience, you constantly experience. Meditation, you meditate again, again, again. So meditation part has 10 stages, right? And bhumis. Finally, through the emptiness meditation, when you completely eliminate your mind of self-grasping, even imprints of the self-grasping, no more learning path, right? That's how he distinguished. So now meditation path has 10 stages. First bhumi, second bhumi, third bhumi, all of these, meditation is the same thing. Emptiness is the same. Same emptiness. They have to meditate again, again, again. That's how the first bhumi, you're cleaning one of the grosser level of mind of self-grasping. Then when you clean it, then you next, the medium gross of the self-grasping, you're cleaning second bhumi. That's how, you're cleansing each of stages of your mind of equal grasping, divided into 9, and then 9, the last one divided into 2. That's how the 10th bhumi, they divided. That's how you're going. Meditation, emptiness, the same thing. There's no differences. Exactly the same. So therefore, when you understand the emptiness, then you got it. The main things, you already got it. Not only you have to familiarize again, again, again to cleaning this, right? Then when you go to the Vajrayana path, same emptiness, but that emptiness not only experiencing by your grosser level of consciousness, you also, that emptiness experienced through subtle consciousness, right? So in order to experience by subtle consciousness, you need to utilize your subtle consciousness. So that's what the Vajrayana, path they choose to able to utilize the subtle consciousness. That's the one of the purpose of the Vajrayana. So we don't need to go too much. So now what I want to say is here, this emptiness is very, very difficult. That's why I mentioned when Buddha, after he achieved the enlightenment Buddhahood, of course, as other beings, in order to liberate, they have to understand the emptiness. So Buddha supposed to be, he need to teach the emptiness, right? But what he say, just after he achieved Buddhahood, he talk like he says, there's one stanza in the sutra, in Tibetan, which is called Sabshi Turtle Vesetumache. Visita vi church koenye sula tenjang pember minute mima naki nambu shepa never chang. Yes, that's word. What that means Sabshin Turtle means profound, peaceful, free from elaboration, luminous, uncompounded. What that means is emptiness. Use different words. For the different labels, they have a different words they use. Profound is the emptiness. Peaceful is emptiness, right? Free from elaboration, emptiness is the free from elaboration. Luminous, uncompounded, clear stages of the mind, right? The wisdom of emptiness. Luminous, uncompounded is the emptiness. So he says profound, peaceful, free from elaboration, luminous, uncompounded. I have found a dharma. That's the dharma. I have found a dharma that is like nectar, right? So he found that emptiness, the dharma. He discovered it. It is like a nectar, which means this nectar will clean all your suffering, all your problems. That's why it's called nectar, right? That is like nectar. Then what he say, even if taught to others, they would be unable to understand it. Even, right, if taught to others, if shared with the others, they will be unable to understand. They will not understand this philosophy, emptiness. Therefore, what he say, I will remain silent and dwell in the forest. Means I will remain silent, right? Keep quiet and stay in the forest. So dwell in the forest. He stayed 49 days. After he become a Buddha, he don't teach 49 days, right? Because he don't find the qualified student, means they will not understand. So what's the point? What's the point? So that means it's not to the Buddha. So if we do not have capable to understand this philosophy, then even the Buddha cannot do that much. He can teach whatever, but they're not understanding. So not understanding what he can do, right? So that's how this one stanza, after he achieved the Buddha, it says, and 49 days, keep silent. Then first, he found 5 students, right? That's how he first shared the Four Noble Truth, the first will of Dharma. In that Dharma, in that teaching, that the real emptiness he cannot share directly, right? But he indirectly, of course, every Buddha's word, it is saying every Buddha's word, either explicitly, either implicitly, is teaching emptiness. Every word of the Buddha, is showing emptiness, either explicitly or implicitly. The disciples were not understanding that. But anyway, in the first wheel of Dharma, when he teach dependent origination in terms of causality, cause dependent on causes condition. So that kind of dependent origination, he teach there. So Four Noble Truth, when you look at truth of suffering, truth of origin of suffering, right? Dependent origination. Suffering comes from origin of suffering, the causes of suffering. He's talking about the relationship between cause and effect, right? Then next, truth of cessation of suffering, truth part. So that cessation depends on part, right? Dependent origination. So he taught dependent origination in terms of cause and effect, right? In terms of cause and effect dependence. Not very simple, right? Cause and effect. Then second wheel of Dharma. So that's why His Holiness Dalai Lama, when he explained this stanza I mentioned earlier, when he explained this stanza, he interpreted very beautifully. He says, first word, profound, peaceful, free from elaboration, luminous, uncompounded. Right? This one line he interpreted very beautifully. Sabshin, Tredil, Wesetumache. So profound, peaceful, which is shows refers first wheel of Dharma, Four Noble Truth. Then when he say free from elaboration, Tredil, that refers second wheel of Dharma. Then luminous, uncompounded, that last word, he refers third wheel of Dharma, which is clear stage of the mind, clear stages. So point is actually what I mentioned here is Buddha, even Buddha saying, I found the Dharma like this nectar, that he cannot find a student and able to understand this philosophy. That's why he keeps silent. It's showing this emptiness philosophy is very difficult. It's not easy. So that's why I mentioned, even Buddha says, right? If taught to others, they would be unable to understand it. So unable to understand. That's why he cannot share this. So, but this is the one of the most important Dharma we need to understand. This is difficult. Therefore, we need to listen again and again. Again and again. When you listen, maybe, 10 years, 10 years, then maybe you'll get something different idea. What does that mean? Right? Then you constantly investigate, analyze. So you spend the time to think about, to investigate, to read these things again. Then you put it into the meditation. And then finally, wisdom of emptiness is the one will lead us to the liberation, right? The Sutra of the King of Samadhi Sutra says that, right? Very clear. And the Aryadeva, Nagarjuna, all of those masters has same message, which is saying the peace, the nirvana is only, leads by wisdom of emptiness. wisdom for understanding the ultimate truth. And that's not only for them, just logic is very easy to understand. Logic, right? Use the logic. The real causes of suffering is mind of self-grasping. So therefore, I think the Arya Deva and also the Dhammapada Sutra also has that. I not have that exactly the uh, what you call the text here, but the meaning, where the Buddha says one of his, I think Dhammapada Sutras, he's saying, just studying on emptiness, just meditating on emptiness, analyzing, analytical meditation, to contemplate to the emptiness, the merit you accumulated is compared with the sand of the river Ganges. River Ganges is one of the longest river, right? Very long river from Tibet to all the way to the India, back to the oceans. So the sands in these rivers, there's countless of particles, right? So same portions of the merit of the sand of this river Ganges, and just meditate on emptiness merit. Which merit is more powerful? Is say just meditate or contemplate or study on emptiness, the merit you accumulate, it's more powerful merit than the merit which is, same portion of the sand of the river Ganges. That's how the Buddha's, one of his sutras says that. So it's, when you meditate, when you study on emptiness, it's really accumulating immeasurable merits constantly. So that's also one benefit. Second thing is, when you study more about that, it's you are getting closer to the emptiness, right? Finally, you will going to get that. You will achieve that. So when you get there, I mentioned earlier, now you got the real detergent, right? Wisdom of emptiness is like a detergent. Now you have that to clean your defilements. Otherwise, without wisdom of emptiness, without detergent, you put your cloth in the water and you can wash for hours and hours. It will not clean completely, right? Exactly same like that. That is why you put effort to study this emptiness of philosophy, constantly, never give up. So these philosophy are very difficult to understand, very difficult to encounter even. Imagine there, we have many other teachings you go where you listen emptiness teachings. It's not that much, popular here. Majority people feel boring. Study on emptiness, they feel boring because it's very complicated, very difficult. They need like empowerments, easy. Just put some weights on the head. You get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, that. So less effort, and you have something, that's people think. But the real you're getting or not, who knows, right? Who knows these things? So that is why sometimes our laziness, so these teaching of the emptiness are always you have to put first in your job, in your life. This is the first job things. Study constantly. So before you losing this precious human life, if you're able to get it, that emptiness, then is precious human life meaningful for you. It accomplish, it accomplish your point, your goal, one, right? So that is why it is very, very important to study and constantly. Then the next what is the next? Oh, it's almost, okay. Maybe leave it there, stanza 18. So, okay, I'm going to stop here maybe. So this is these two stanza, which is mainly same meaning, right? One is the understanding the object of negation, right? If things exist independently, then there's no nirvana, there's no parts, there's nothing, anything else. Even the one of the texts here, they're saying, yes, Nagarjuna says here, if all of these were non-empty, right? If Nagarjuna's the fundamental wisdom, right? Geti tiku mi tona juwa mi jikwa mi pawe demba shibona chela meba tewa yurs, which means if all of these were non-empty, right? Non-empty means non-empty of inherent existence, right? If the things are not empty of inherent existence, there will be no arising and no cessation. There will be not arising, no cessation. The Four Noble Truths will then not exist for you. So if there is no arising, no cessation, then there is no Four Noble Truths, right? Which means this we need to understand. If things are exist independently, right? If things are not empty of inherent existence, that means there is no arising from cause condition. There's no cessation. There's no cessation, no arising. If there is no cessation, no arising, then Four Noble Truth, of course, not exists. So that meaning, is that really make sense to you? Do you really understand that? Which means if this, this flower, for instance, if this flower exists independently, that means that flower is not arising from cause condition. That flower will not cessation, never end it. Because not arising from cause, it will never end. So if this is not end it, then Four Noble Truth, how can they exist? If there's no arising, no cessation, then Four Noble Truths, right? Because truth of suffering arising from truth of origin of suffering, right? Truth of cessation of suffering is the cessation of your mental afflictions. So this will be not exist. So that meaning, it is saying in there, but for you, do you really understand that? Is that really, do you see this contradiction between exist independently, same time arising from cause condition, right? Which is mind-only school, right? Sutra, autonomy school, non-Buddhist school, everybody except middle way consequences school, rest of the followers, philosophers who assert, who believe things exist independently, one side, right? In one hand, things exist independently. On the other hand, they also believe things arising from causes condition, things will be ended after. So arising and cessation, they're still. So as a middle way consequences perspective, from that perspective, you see these two are contradict or not, right? So I mentioned, if you're not understanding the object of negation, if you're really still not understanding exists independently, which means what? then you may still not understanding the contradiction between independent existence and still exist from causes condition, still believing things arising from causes condition, which means exists independently, but it's also changeable. It's still you can change that. So the stanza we learned today, stanza 16, right? Today 16, 17. So stanza 16, which main point is if things exist independently, that intrinsically, that means it cannot change. Things exist intrinsically in nature. That means you cannot negate it. You cannot change that. Therefore, cessation, nirvana will not exist, right? Elaboration, the nirvana, cease your mind of ego grasping. This will be impossible because nothing can change. So now for you, exists independently and things change. These two, can you see contradict or not, right? That's the one important point you need to investigate. Means you need to research on this week. Then second here, stanza 17, it is saying Buddha's confidence. He has confidence to talk about emptiness means dependent origination, front of scholars, right? Without hesitation. That kind of confidence, that experience he has. Now for us to build that confidence, first, do you really still understanding empty means dependent origination, right? Empty means dependent origin. Do you still get that? What's mean by empty? Empty means dependent origination, right? What's mean by dependent origination? Dependent origination means empty, right? So these two meanings. So you research in this week. So that will definitely helps to understanding the emptiness more better way. So that's why we praise to the Buddha to have this kind of knowledge, but we praise that it's okay, right? It's good. But through this praising what we learn, so why we should have that, right? We should build that same confidence. So in order to build that confidence, first I need to do you really understand emptiness means dependent origination, right? So not empty means nothing else. So most of the masters are saying the same meaning here, same important message. They're saying just emptiness when you go looks a little bit easier. But emptiness means dependent. That part really struggle. So that's why we need to understand, when you meditate, when you think about yourself, research, emptiness for you, emptiness means dependent. That really kick you back there or not, right? It kicks you back there or not. For instance, there's only 2 persons here in this house who live in this house, only 2 persons, nothing else, right? But the owner, he lost his watch. His watch somebody steal. But there are only 2 persons there, right? Then the one guy come here saying, this one is short, one is tall, for instance. This short guy, he not steal your watch. That's all. You give that message. So not stealing your watch by this short guy, that means this tall guy steal your watch. There's nothing any else there, right? So not stealing this means this guy is the thief who steals that. So that's how empty is. Nothing exists independently. That means, oh, they are dependent on something, right? It's not, this not exists. For instance, flower not exists independently. When they say flower not exists independently means it exists dependently, goes outside. When they say this is empty means there's something there. If there's nothing, anything there, how can say this is empty? This is empty means there's something, right? So it's a container. Empty means container exists. This container is there. That's why container is empty. If container is not there, how can you say container is empty? It's nothing there. So similarly, that's how you need to think. Everything's not exists independently. Means nothing else there, nothing else to grabbing, nothing, anything, right? So things, nothing means things, something exists. So that existence is something dependently, because it cannot exist independently. Means it's dependent on something else. So that's how you need to, build your brain bigger, think more different way, more different aspect, to exercise, to play your brain, to get something there, right? To get something. So therefore, either, we say the meditate means just when you sit on the coffee, in your chair, drinking a coffee, just exercise, to play your brain with these things. So that's how you getting some kind of, the knowledge that you will discover. So it mainly finally discovering by yourself. Words alone cannot describe emptiness by word. So these words you listen and your mind need to play again and again. And that's how you getting something eventually you cannot able to describe. But for you, feel more confidence. Still empty, but still you have no problem with everything's function. You still pay respect to the law of karma, law of causality. Same time, you have 100% confidence, things nothing from its own. So it makes you more comfortable. So that kind of experience, I think you need to work hard. So that's why these teachings are not easy, and just only meditation is not enough. Always to accumulate merits, to purify the obstacles so constantly, and during this, when you're doing any even simple prostration, make sure out of bodhicitta intention, and that's your merits become more powerful, more effective out of bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, 1,000 times of prostration. With bodhicitta, one time of prostration. With bodhicitta, one time of prostration become more, higher merits than without bodhicitta, 100,000 times of prostration. Huge differences, huge differences. So that is why any little merit you do with that. Then where you're prostrating to the objects with your guru yoga practice, without guru yoga, with the guru yoga, more. It's more multiplying. So there are many advantages. If you know how to do it, just simple small thing you do, huge big merit. Do not know how to do it, you put so much effort, just little result. So much effort with a little result, little effort with a huge big result. That only if you know how to do it, right? The proper way, the order we have. So if you do proper way, small thing can huge benefit. So these are important. Okay, so we're going to stop here. And then today, no question answer section here. It's already 8:30. So next class, I will going to leave the question answer section so you can keep it in. You have questions, but today, don't think not that much questions. Just it's the same thing, for last few class are the same point, but a different way to explaining, but the same main point. Okay, so now we're going to do the dedication prayer. Samsara and nirvana lack even an atom of true existence, while cause and effect and dependent arisings are infallible. I seek your blessing to discern the import of Nagarjuna's thought that these two are complementary and not contradictory. Chajo Semcho Rinpoche, Maje Panam Kichuchi, Jeva Nyamba Mebayang, Kone Kondo Pewa Sho. May the precious and sublime Bodhicitta not yet born be born, and that which just been born not decline but increase forever. In the snowy mountain paradise, you are the source of good and happiness, powerful things in Gyatso Chenresi. May you stay until samsara ends. Throughout the world, and in particular this region, may there be no sickness, famine, war, and so on. May all sentient beings live happily in accord with the law of Dharma, and may they all find wealth, prosperity, and all goodness. Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Geshe-la.
thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Geshe-la. Bye.
Bye.